Hi, I'll be picking up in this video where I left off in the last. There's a footnote to paragraph 19 which I'll read as well. Wenn bei den Trillern und dessen Nachschläge die Versetzungszeichen nicht angedeutet sind, so muss man sie bald aus dem vorhergehenden Figur 30a, bald aus der Folge b, bald aus dem Gehöre und der Modulation beurteilen c. Wir merken hierbei mit an, dass in dem Verhältnisse der Intervallen des Trillers und seines Nachschlags unter sich keine überflüssige Sekunde sein darf d. Die Andeutung der Versetzungszeichen bei den Trillern ist auch außer dem Klavier oft so notwendig, je weniger man, zumal in Rippiensstimmen, die Modulation und ihre schnelle Änderung einsehen kann. Viele haben aus dieser Ursache das Versetzungszeichen der trillernden Note als einen Vorschlag vorgesetzt, wobei aber gar leicht eine Verwirrung entstehen kann, indem statt des gleich einfallenden Trillers ein Vorschlag zuvor angebracht wird. So here's figure 30A, and so Bach is saying how you can figure out the accidentals of that connected with a trill and its Nachschlag. And there you can see the B natural preceding the trilled note, the C. And so the Nachschlag, or the afterstroke, will be played with a B natural. And then for figure C, Bach says, it can be figured out with the ear and the modulation. The modulation basically applies to all those examples, because what you have in figure 30A is the music is modulating into C major, and so it's the modulation. So there you can, how can you spot the modulation? You can see it by the preceding note, what comes before or what comes after. So in A, it's coming before, so you can know that the Nachschlag has a B natural instead of a B flat. And in figure 30B, in the first one, you can see it's the note that comes after determining the accidental of the trill. So instead of trilling in that first example in figure 30B, instead of trilling with playing B flat A, you'll be trilling with a B natural and an A, because again it's modulating. And as well, you could know from what you've learned on trills, you could think that might be, depending on the tempo, but that might be a trill with a Nachschlag, and the short note after the dot, the B natural, will not be played as a 16th note, but rather as a 32nd note or a demi-semiquaver. So you could know its actual performance from the insight and knowledge that Bach has provided you. And in the second example of figure 30, you can see again the F sharp following the G. So the modulation is, you know you're in G minor. You can see that the Nachschlag will have an F sharp. Instead of the Nachschlag being an F, as you might guess from the key signature, you can see that the accidental following means the Nachschlag will have an F sharp instead of an F. And again in the second bar, you could see because of the G sharp following the Nachschlag, we'll have a G sharp in it instead of a G. And then in C, you can see there's accidentals, that the upper note of the trill, the F, when you see the key signature, there's no sharps or flats. So you might think that the trill would be an F and a D. But from the modulation and from your ear, and what does Bach mean by that? It means that the same as he said an average ear will know when the Nachschlag can be performed or not, the average ear will know what accidentals are correct or not. But one could see from that one is in A minor, and that the harmony of that E will be E major. And so, and that would mean the F sharp and the D sharp. So the F sharp is the upper note of the trill, and the D sharp is the first note of the Nachschlag. And what Bach says in the footnote, about the individual parts, the Rippchenstimmen. And if you think of, that's in unison, the left and right hand. If you think of them as parts, and the violin or some instrument in an ensemble or an orchestra, they just have their individual part, and they see that E, C, A and B. They could think, they wouldn't know if the left hand would be like go C, E and F and G, and that would be the accompanying harmony, or that would be making up the harmony, which would mean if the notes in the left hand, instead of them being E, C, A and B, if they were C, E, F and G, it would mean it has nothing, it's not A minor, so they wouldn't know that it's A minor if they're not, let's say they're playing it as, presenting it without having gone through it beforehand. They have no way of knowing that it's A minor because they don't see the other parts. So that would, it makes sense what Bach is saying there, that it's important, the Versetzungszeichen, or the accidentals are important, because in that case they will not know. They have no hope of knowing, and it doesn't even matter if they're a Bach or whatever. They don't see that. When they realize it's too late, they've already played the trill. And so Bach says, about the appoggiatura, that they'll use an appoggiatura with an accidental to indicate the accidentals of the trill, and that can cause confusion. And one might think, wonder about the relevance of it, because that becomes relevant when you understand that, when you know of the existence of the angeschlossene triller, or the connected trill. And so one might think, well, nobody knows about the connected trill, so they're anyway always going to just, start playing the trill without any appoggiatura beforehand, because they don't even know that exists. So it's kind of irrelevant, that information. But where I would see the relevance is that, you're not going to encounter that in Mozart or Beethoven. They won't have adopted it. But let's say you're playing another composer of that time. And let's say, the way Lilliput operates, it's like monkey see, monkey do. One day they'll be condemning something. Lilliput will be condemning something. The next day, that will be, idolized, and something else will be vilified. Then the other thing that they condemned will be idolized, and that what they idolized will be vilified. So if let's say what I'm doing here actually gets true and sort of starts to take over the education in classical music education, and I reform that it's a reformation. Just like, Martin Luther translated the Bible so people could decide for themselves. They weren't reliant on the church telling them what God was saying, the message God. The people, thanks to Martin Luther, the people could start deciding for themselves what it was that God was saying. When I translate this book, when I make it accessible to you, you get to decide yourself what it is Bach is saying. And you get to see the education you're been given, where they have complete monopoly over insight and what they tell you. You will start to revolt against that, because you can see the total lack of insight and how absurd and how ridiculous it is what they're up to. If you get through what I've presented on appoggiaturas, you can see how pathetic Lilliput's knowledge of appoggiaturas actually is. How yeah, so if it got true, then Lilliput it would be all about the angeschlossene triller. And then what would happen to me, like how it would be relevant to me, is there'd be some piece where I see that the appoggiatura before that couldn't possibly be an angeschlossene triller or a connected trill. And I play the trill without that. Then I'll be screamed at that I'm making a mistake or I'm wrong by Lilliput, because all of a sudden they're all about the angeschlossene triller, even though they didn't know of its existence before. Well, I'll be able to say, Bach won't have left me high and dry. I'll know that there's no way that could be an appoggiatura, that was not, and Bach will have given me the support I needed to say, look, this is what they were doing too. So, in that respect, what Bach said in his footnote could be proved to be relevant, as you will find if you just keep what's said, what Bach says with you, you will find the evidence, the relevance of what Bach says in the world around you. So, and then you see figure D, and Bach says there can be no augmented seconds in the intervals of a trill or its You know, the relationship to the intervals of the trill and its Nachschlag. And there you can see the trill on the F sharp. And normally, according to the key signature, the E of the Nachschlag should be E flat. But since there's no augmented seconds, you'll play an E natural instead of the E flat. And you could look at that example there, and you could think of Schubert's song in his song cycle, Winterreise. And you could think of the second song, Die Wetterhahn. And that in there, Schubert presents a trilling with an augmented second. And you could say, look at that. There's Schubert showing us a trill with an augmented second in its intervals. So either Bach is wrong or Schubert's wrong. And I would refer you back to paragraph 12 in the chapter on ornaments in general. And how relevant it is what Bach says when he says, Indem ich mich in dieser schweren Sache nur zur Zeit keines Vorgängers, welcher mir diese schlüpfrige Bahn gebrochen hätte, zu erinnern weiß, so wird mir niemand verübeln können, wenn ich glaube, dass, ungeachtet gewisser festgesetzten Fälle, dennoch vielleicht eine Möglichkeit zur Ausnahme vorhanden sein kann. So if Bach was looking at that trill that Schubert presents with the augmented second, Bach would see the exception, would see the circumstances, and he would say, yes, that is perfectly acceptable. He would see the effect, he would see that it is treated properly, and that it is something that actually exists in the world of music, and it's not just notes without consequence. So when Bach says that about no augmented seconds, there can't be any augmented seconds. If you look at my, I can hear this in my upload of that Largo maestoso by Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach. That what you're seeing there or hearing there, it's not a piece with ornaments in it. It's an actual style of playing. It's a style that is as valid as like a jazz style of playing or any style. It is a style of playing. And in this style, there can't be augmented seconds in those ornaments. What Bach is doing here is he is telling you, giving you the ability to be able to play piano in that style. So it means you can improvise in that style. And that style, all those ornaments, they are a way of expressing virtuosity, a way of drawing effect and enlivening, elevating the tones, the melodies, the music. So that all belongs. That does not mean that Schubert can't introduce a trill with an augmented second in it. It means that in this style of playing, the augmented second does not come. It does not mean that it can't come in a special effect or in the place where it actually can exist in the world of music. to acquire that style. That's why you can't get these things wrong. That is why Lilliput has failed to capture that style of playing, because they get everything wrong. Basically, they get everything wrong. And what I want to do here is give you the chance to get it right and present everything, all the examples, all the words, everything Bach says. Make those connections. Like I said before, what I am going to do, or what I am in the process of doing, is unlocking the secrets of this book, unlocking those same secrets that Beethoven unlocked. Those secrets that made Beethoven Beethoven. And you will see the hidden language in Beethoven that only somebody who has unlocked the secrets of these books will recognize, will spot, and know that Beethoven unlocked the secrets. So, that was the quintessence of the trill. It is something you can think about, something you can look out for. And if you do consider it, and you do come to find yourself, when you've come to your conclusion, that your conclusion agrees with what I've said, you can hear and understand the score you're looking at differently. And you can come closer to, when you play that music, that you can come closer to it being Mozart you're listening to rather than yourself. And I guarantee, if you open a score and you don't hear yourself play, if you hear Mozart play, if you open a Beethoven score and you don't hear yourself play, you hear Beethoven play, that is wonderful. And I would say as well that score, a lot of Lilliput, all these experts on the Roll of Honor, they'll tell you how empty the scores are, how much is missing. I say that is not true. I say that the fidelity with which you can recreate the score is equals or is even superior to that a CD would provide. A CD recording of Mozart himself playing, or Beethoven himself playing, or Bach himself playing. That when you become literate, when you are able to read the score, you will reproduce Mozart himself with more fidelity than a CD player would be able to do it. Because you know what they say about all the stereo and sound system, like surround sound and stuff. This is actually, the sound is actually in the room, is being created in the room, as if Mozart himself was playing, when you achieve actual authenticity. And that can be achieved with the score. And that is the reward you stand to gain from this. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe me, but I'm saying that is what it is. That you can, when you have all the secrets, you won't listen to yourself anymore play when you play through a Mozart sonata. You'll be listening to Mozart. And that's a wonderful thing. It's infinitely more interesting than just listening to yourself all the time. And you will know that The only time you ever listen to yourself play is when you play your own compositions. Then you will be hearing you. But if you're playing Mozart's compositions or Beethoven's compositions, you are listening to them. At the very least, it should, pique your curiosity and think, well, what have I got to lose? What have I got to lose if I give it a go, if I take it a look? It's free. All you have to do is subscribe. What's there to lose? At the very least, you are hearing Bach's words, and you can do with those words what you want, but you have heard them. If you look at this book, how it's written, that'll be like looking at a indecipherable code. You won't know if you're, if you don't speak German. And even then, it's a challenge to know exactly what Bach means. You could be that's what I would be. When I was younger, I'd open a book like this and I'd dream of knowing what it is that's actually being said in those pages. I'd pine for it. There'd be nothing more there was nothing more in the world that I wanted than to know what's hidden in this indecipherable, these indecipherable letters or symbols I'm seeing on the page. You get to know what this is, and this is the accumulated knowledge of what makes Bach Bach. So believe it or not, there will be things I haven't said in this video. And but there'll be a chance, there'll be opportunities to say them again, so I guess it doesn't really matter. The next paragraphs, Bach will be talking about the mistakes that people make with regard to trills. So Lilliput are not off the hook. I'll leave it at that now, and thanks for watching. Bye.